पहलगाम आतंकवादी हमले से हुई। गुस्सा नहीं, लावा था। दिमाग में बस एक ही बात, अब की बार सबक ऐसा सिखाएंगे कि इनकी पीढ़ियां याद रखेंगी। ये बदले की भावना नहीं, ये न्याय था।
While one phase of Operation Sindoor was stopped after the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, and it continues as per the Raksha Mantri Sri Rajnath Singh, what is very clear that this was the most serious conflict between India and Pakistan since the Kargil crisis. So what started off as a very despicable attack on tourists in Pahalgam with the intent to create communal strife also, as soon escalated into a more serious conflict as India hit targets inside declared terror targets inside Pakistan. So what was achieved from this conflict? We need to discuss this, and to discuss this, we have with us Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain, former GOC 15 Corps and member of NDMA. Welcome again to Samvad, sir.
Thank you. Jai Hind to all our viewers.
Sir, apart from the very primordial motive of inflicting fear and pain in the adversary, modern warfare has also incorporated the element of deterrence to make war costly for the adversary. While common people say that India should have continued with this Operation Sindoor and basically put Pakistani army into a situation where it was no longer capable of spreading terror in the country, we as analysts have to dissect the facts as they present themselves. So what, in your opinion, is the deterrence established by the Indian army against the Pakistani army and terror combined in Pakistan?
Thank you, first of all, Mike, for inviting me for this program, which is becoming increasingly very popular, I find. A lot of people are subscribing to your channel in particular. So my compliments on that.
Thank you, sir.
Secondly, मैं समझता हूँ बहुत important चीज के ये हमारा पहला discussion हो रहा है after the launch of Op Sindoor and termination of Op Sindoor. So we will keep these things in perspective as we go along. हम और भी इस तरह के discussions करेंगे. मगर आपका सवाल बहुत interesting है. It's a very good question. Because it was troubling a lot of people in India. जब passions बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ जाते हैं, and the reasons were very much there, that it was such a despicable act, as you just mentioned, that everyone was looking for retribution, revenge of some kind. और जब वो शुरू हुआ, बहुत जल्दी खत्म हो गया, within 3 days. People thought that we had not attained our objectives, and that we had pulled back prematurely. No, this is a matter of will always remain a matter of debate. And even among informed people, although among lesser informed people, these passions were very, very strong. But they were also there among reasonably well-informed people. So I'll put it across in this manner and say, I think we had limited aims, very mature aims, achievable aims. I think the government of India was very clear कि ये एक दफे में खत्म नहीं होगा. This is not going to be a one-off affair कि आज हम करेंगे, खत्म कर देंगे, vaporize कर देंगे पाकिस्तान को. It's not possible. I mean, strategic realities और जो environment है उसको अगर आप बारीकी से देखें, then it becomes obvious that Pakistan is a nuclear state also. जब उसको existential threat होगा, तो there will be a major issue. We do not want a response on our cities coming to having a large-scale casualties of that kind. Despite our destroying Pakistan, I'm sure Pakistan could also do some things to us. So that would be a very Pyrrhic kind of a victory. Here, most people do not realize this. And the government of India has to be responsible towards the larger aims. And I'm sure that this was considered that this is not the only thing that they will do. It's the first of the actions, the first of the very proactive actions that they have taken. And strategic messaging has been strong. The fact that we have gone into Punjab, the center of gravity, is a strong message to Pakistan. We will not stop there. Terrorist camps जो important camps like Murid Ke and Bahawalpur, etc., are close to very important headquarters of the Pakistan army. It just needs a tweak of your crosshairs to make sure that you target those various headquarters and other organizations of the Pakistan Armed Forces. ये भी हमने डेमोन्स्ट्रेट कर दिया कि देखिए कितने एयर बेसिस को हमने कितनी एक्यूरेटली फायर करके दिखा दिया. I think a very important aspect was the demonstration of our technological superiority. वो हमने दिखा दी. It must have been a very difficult decision on the part of the Honorable Prime Minister and his advisors to stop it and stop it early. But I think it is the strategic maturity of a leader. And this is where I think Prime Minister Modi really demonstrated his larger understanding of the strategic environment. That you have achieved a short-term deterrence, perhaps, not a long-term one. ये कुछ वक्त के लिए नहीं होगा. कुछ वक्त के बाद कोई और लीडरशिप होगी पाकिस्तान में. Someone will come back and think that they can do it all over again. If you look at it, memories in Pakistan are very, very short. परवेज मुशर्रफ ने 99 में यही कोशिश की थी. Brilliant conflict initiation with no conflict termination. यही बात इस दफे इन्होंने शुरू की. ये हर दफे चलता रहता है. So we should not get into that trap. और मोर लोग समझते हैं कि 200 मिलियन का देश है. इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी भी कंसर्न रहती है. वी आर अ पार्ट ऑफ द इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी. वी कैन नॉट डिटैच आवरसेल्व्स अवे फ्रॉम इट. अब आप देखिए क्यों हमारे साथ ये ऑल पार्टी डेलीगेशंस जा रहे हैं. पूरी दुनिया को समझाने जा रहे हैं. नहीं तो हम कहते हैं भाड़ में जाए. दुनिया अपनी अलग है, हम अलग हैं. See, this is the way to understand it. The strategic maturity which is on display. And you have got two simultaneous wars running. You've got Ukraine running. You've got Gaza running. दोनों में एम अभी तक अचीव नहीं हुआ है. यहां 3 दिन में भारत ने अपनी डेमोन्स्ट्रेटेड कैपेबिलिटी के साथ I think we achieved our limited aims.
Sir, any conflict which starts obviously for the democracy. So we're not talking of something like Pakistan, which is an aberration in whole in many aspects. There are certain political and certain military objectives when you start off a war. A mature democracy does that. तो सर हमारा इसमें ऑब्जेक्टिव सर ये लोग जानना चाहते हैं कि हमारा ऑब्जेक्टिव पॉलिटिकल ऑब्जेक्टिव एक तो क्या था सर, मिलिट्री ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या था सर, क्योंकि तभी उससे समझ में आएगा सर कि जो सीज फायर हुआ सर वो कितना रेलेवेंस होल्ड करता है सर आज.
बहुत अच्छा सवाल है आपका ये, और सभी ये पूछ रहे हैं. और मैं ये आपको एडमिट करके कहता हूं कि आई वाज एक्सपेक्टिंग कि आप ये पूछेंगे मुझसे, तो मैं भी तैयार करके लाया इसको. मैं भी तैयार करके लाया कि it needs to be short, needs to be crisp, and it needs to be clear.
Yes, sir.
जब तक अगर आप कंफ्यूज स्टेट के अंदर आपके वार्तालाप चल रहे हैं, डिबेट चल रहे हैं, उसके अंदर आपने डिसीजन लेकर कर दिया कुछ, that doesn't achieve anything. I think here there was complete strategic clarity. The fact that you have achieved you demonstrated your ceasefire or executed a ceasefire within 72 to 96 hours shows the level of strategic clarity. मेरे ख्याल से में political aim was very clear, and let me just read out what I have written for you. मैं समझता हूँ it was to demonstrate a strategic resolve, जिसको हम political वो कहते हैं ना, will कहते हैं, a strategic resolve to send a clear message to Pakistan and other adversaries. There are other adversaries around also, you have to remember, that India will respond decisively to provocations, especially involving terror and cross-border aggression. ये तो क्लियर था. Second thing which I think the aim was to reinforce the cost of proxy war. जो हमारे तरफ कहते हैं ना, पाकिस्तान को पनिश करना चाहिए, पुनिटिव होना चाहिए, उनको कोई कॉस्ट इसकी जो है वो उनके ऊपर इम्पोज करनी चाहिए. So I think what has happened is that we have been able to erode, due to a lack of strong responses all this time. We have not been able to erode it earlier, but this time we have been able to erode Pakistan's capability to a great extent, increase the cost and expose it. Now, a lot of people may not agree with me and say हमने expose नहीं कर पाए हैं. मगर I think the fact that the issue is being discussed, and looked upon internationally, and being reinforced by our seven delegations which are going around, and the fact that we are now taking it on in a much bigger way in terms of strategic communication. All this is a part of our political way. I think the third aspect of our political aim was to limit escalation. Now, that's an important thing, because limiting escalation meant that we went for our ceasefire early. So limiting, we did not want to escalate this beyond. The international community would not permit it, and we are a responsible power. And lastly, I think in political aims, it was to consolidate national and political unity, which has been demonstrated to a very great extent. So, ये चार मेरे political aims थे, and I think largely they have been met. Military aims, मैं कहता हूं कि it was demonstrate, first of all, our superior decision making, our technology exploitation, and our overall military dominance. This has been amply and clearly demonstrated. The second thing was dominate the escalation ladder. Escalation ladder वो हमारे control में रहा throughout. Use calibrated force to retain the initiative and control over the conflict narrative. When we wanted to terminate it, we terminated it. And secure Indian positions. This was very important, the last one. Secure our positions and morale. National morale must be retained, which meant that you have to make sure that your military domination is complete. Translating this on the ground would essentially meant that your integrated air defense system, the way it performed, enhanced the overall motivation and morale of the whole nation. And this came out of your military resolve and military aim completely. So this is the way I would look at it.
So taking this a bit further, we have seen that the terror groups in Pakistan mein jo hai, sir, they have very close and complex relationship with the political parties. There are times when it seems कि sir वो parties के अपनी ये their wings, जैसे हमारे यहाँ there are student wings of different political parties, youth wings. The Pakistan political parties have terror wings. So there are very complex linkages between the political parties and the terror groups, as well as the state institutions. Now, these terror groups are operating on the same wavelength as the army's ideology. We saw that during the funeral of these terrorists, the senior army officers present, although they keep on denying that they were there, or the person who was there leading the prayers was a terrorist, but the world has seen it, the world understands it. They might not admit it as of now because of various reasons. Sir, so this is a very nourishing, flourishing system hai Pakistan mein, sir. So can we, after Operation Sindoor, can we expect the terror ecosystem nurtured on the propaganda of radicalism and jihad? Do they have any reason to get away from this business of terrorism, or this goes on?
Well, I'm surprised as to how a nation and an organization such as the Pakistan Army, which is supposed to be extremely good at strategic communication, how they allowed these visuals to emerge. Because deniability is the most important element of their strategy. For everything that we allege against them, वो हर वक्त कहते हैं, दुनिया को कहते हैं कि देखो भारत को ये तो फॉल्स, सब कुछ जो है फॉल्स फ्लैग है, ये तो अपनी तरफ से कर रहे हैं, हमारा क्या नाता है इसके साथ, right? But despite that, this time they fell for that trap somehow. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that they have learned their lessons from it. I think radical, the whole issue of extremism, which got embedded or started getting embedded in 1977 as a part of the strategic intent of Ziaul Haq at that time, that is going to be a very difficult to wean away from the Pakistan Army. Political parties में नहीं है इतना. मैं अभी भी समझता हूं कि political parties का contact नाता जो है radical elements के साथ कुछ हद तक कम है comparatively. Except of course there are organizations like Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, etc., which have their linkages with certain political parties, but mainstream political parties जो है वो थोड़ा दूर रखती है अपने आप को इन चीजों से. मगर Pakistan Army does not. And Pakistan Army is the one which rules the roost, as you're aware. So, on one hand, there is a schism within. There's no doubt. I have spoken to many Pakistan Army officers, former officers, etc. Many of them condemn this. Many of them are against it, but the voice is not strong enough. The voice, as it always happens, the voice of extremism is always higher, more shrill, more strong. और वही है पाकिस्तान के अंदर भी. So I don't think this is going to, I mean, a 3 or 4 day operation of this kind, which has embarrassed the Pakistan Army, is not enough to be able to break that linkage between the extremism and the Pakistan Army itself. They believe that this is one form, since they believe in the thousand cuts theory or the thousand cuts doctrine, what other way of imposing thousand cuts exists as an option for them? If you really analyze it from that angle, okay, chalo, let's say they pull back from supporting extremism, but they still want thousand cuts. वो thousand cuts कैसे impose करेंगे भारत के ऊपर? There is no other way. ये तो बहुत अच्छा आसान तरीका है, इन्फिल्ट्रेशन करो, वहां पर आप promote terrorism and extremism in the valley or in Kashmir or southern India में करिए, central India में करिए. You will force all the Indian intelligence agencies to look in different directions. Pinprick actions इधर उधर होंगे. मैं अभी भी कहता हूं कि देखिए अभी तो this is all quiet in the Kashmir Valley. We have had some very successful anti-terrorist operations. मगर as the tourist season picks up, give ourselves a break for some time. Hopefully Amarnath Yatra will be absolutely peaceful. मगर उसके बाद इसकी experimentation फिर शुरू होगी. To see कितना बड़ा acceptable है, something which will not cross the threshold. हालांकि माननीय प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा है सीधा कि for us any act of terror will be treated as an act of war. A lot of people are asking me this question कि क्या मतलब था प्रधानमंत्री साहब का, क्या इसका मतलब था? Do you mean to say that for even one small action, एक आदमी के मरने से क्या हम लड़ाई लड़ने को तैयार हो जाएंगे? I say no. What the Prime Minister has done is he has put Pakistan on warning. कि don't take us for granted. हमारा 1 या 100 बराबर हो सकते हैं. It's a question of a situation at that particular time and what decision we take. What are the pressures on us and what decisions we take at that time. So you are on notice. Anytime you try this act of violence against us, we will come after you. This is the larger meaning which must be understood by everyone. People take these things too literally. अरे प्रधानमंत्री हैं, प्रधानमंत्री के लफ्जों को समझना पड़ता है. You have to analyze them and understand them. He's not going to speak to you literally and say, मैं 3 दफे हमला करूंगा साल में. He's not going to say this to you. So this is something which needs to be understood. So
Sir, what
at
you
the
would...
end of it, yeah, go ahead.
No, sir, please, sir. Please go ahead.
मैं ये complete कर रहा था सिर्फ कि at the end of the day, the linkage between the Pakistan Army, the terrorist groups, I don't think has ended in any way or is in any way in the progress of ending. FATF ने काफी इनके ऊपर प्रेशर डाला था, मगर Pakistan is a past master at denial and being able to obfuscate evidence here and there, वो सब उन्होंने कर दिया. अब उसको और तरीके मिलेंगे उनको करने के लिए, मगर ये लिंकेज नहीं टूटेगा.
Sir, FATF को तो देखा जाए सर, I mean they should have upgraded Pakistan to the black list, but वो grey list में ही रहे. They survive on IMF doles, and if they go on to the blacklist, the IMF is not going to help them out. So obviously there are pressures from other countries also to keep them. वो nuclear threshold को लेकर जो धमकी देते हैं, so that works for them, it seems. It always works.
Yeah, this international pressures, if you see this time also, one feels sorry that despite very clear evidence and the Pahalgam attack being absolutely a heinous kind of an attack, the world did not come together to condemn everything that happened from Pakistan's side. And the United States, to my mind, has been favoring them to a very great extent. The FATF business of not putting them on the blacklist, also the loans which have come, have all come, if you remember, at the instance of the United States, based on that famous sale of $650 million worth of ammunition which went to Ukraine. When the whole world was short of ammunition, it was Pakistan's war-wasted reserves which were all being airlifted by C-17 aircraft from Rawalpindi and from Islamabad all the way to Ukraine. So in moments of crisis, when you have done favors to the United States in this manner, payback time for the US is always this.
But it
And
looked
that's
very
why
bad.
it's too seen. Yes.
But it looked very bad.
Unfortunate.
In the middle of a crisis, this thing happening, bailing them out. But
Absolutely.
maybe that is how the world functions. Now, taking issue further, sir, again, we are also escalating in a way. The Pakistani army, I was reading Christine Fair, I mean, in her book, The Fighting to the End, she says that Pakistan's antagonism with respect to India cannot be reduced to the bilateral dispute over Kashmir, she writes. And the army also aims to resist India's position of regional dominance. For the Pakistani army, resistance to India is its raison d'etre, and retaining the ability to challenge India is victory. Now, the army, since it's considered itself the ideological, the guardians of the ideological frontiers of Pakistan and Islam, sir, they work in a different way. So do you see that given this background, the background I was talking about, and Christine Fair basically she writes about, is there any possibility you see for the army to change its ways? Badlenge kabhi?
Having read Christine Fair very deeply, having enjoyed this being with her on several panels in the last couple of years also, and having been in touch with her, I think there's no better person, there's no person in the world who understands the Pakistan army better than her. A very, very deep research.
So you come close. So you come close.
I would think Aisha Siddiqa is the other person within Pakistan who, of course, lives in London today. She knows the Pakistan army very, very well. Her famous book, Military Incorporated, Military Inc., if you remember, is something which is worth reading for anyone who wants to understand Pakistan. So having said that, there is a nexus within Pakistan, the deep state, just go on deep state, and there's a deep nexus there. And they have been ruling the roost. They have been feathering their nest. I mean, all kinds of phrases and idioms we use for the Pakistan army. They are not going to give this up in a hurry. The very luxurious lifestyle of most of them, their children abroad, studying abroad, properties which they have purchased abroad. What a stark difference between the Pakistan armed forces and the Indian armed forces, agar aap dekhe unko, right? But then this is where the professionalism comes in. You saw the kind of professionalism displayed, executed by the Indian armed forces, and the bombastic, kind of boasts which have been coming from the Pakistan armed forces. Their professionalism will always remain questionable, which is I've always been saying that world's greatest conflict initiators and the world's worst conflict terminators. They have never had an idea how to terminate a conflict, or they never won a war, right? But civil society within Pakistan, unless it gets stronger, unless it starts realizing and unless it rises up against it, I don't foresee an end. I don't foresee a change in the approach and attitude of the Pakistan army. If you remember way back in 1968, I always love giving this example. 1965, the Pakistan army lost the war. Of course, they put out in a huge way Victory Day and this, that, 6th of September, right? That's, in fact, 6th of September is the day around which the Battle of Asal Uttar was going on. At that time in which Patangad was created out there. But yet, Pakistan celebrates it as Victory Day. No, the people in Pakistan understood from 66 onwards as to what the effect of the war had been. Their economy was emasculated completely. There was nothing left with them, and there was the coffers were completely empty. But despite that, you found the civil society of Pakistan in 68, 69 came up. In a 3-month movement on the streets, they actually overthrew Ayub Khan. Although the Pakistan army came back, it was Yahya Khan who came back. But the architect of 1965, Operation Gibraltar, was overthrown. Now, can that kind of a thing with street, from the power of the street, can that happen again in Pakistan? I don't think so. Not at all, because the politics of Pakistan is such very, very frittered and fractured politics. And the ability to go down to the people and ensure that this power which has been taken over by the Pakistan army, especially in terms of foreign affairs, economic affairs, and internal security, if all this is taken back, squeezed back by the civil society, by the political parties, can that ever happen? I don't think under the current circumstances, especially when the economy is so weak at this time, I don't think it can really happen in a hurry. So we got to live with this problem. And as I said, our aims were short-term aims. Our deterrence achieved is short-term deterrence. And therefore, there will be a time after which some issues will start coming back. You may find a change of leadership in Pakistan after a period. I'm not saying it's going to happen in 2 months or 3 months. See, the last major thing happened in 2019. And after that, it happened in 2025. And before that, 2016 to 2019. So periods of 3 to 4, 5 years are the intervals which normally take place. But obviously, this is not the end that we have seen.
We've been hearing reports that Imran Khan might be released, but that is hardly going to change anything for India, sir, because the army still continues with its way. Now, sir, Pakistan...
It can happen with international pressure. But under President Trump's leadership, I doubt this will happen, because President Trump, his interest in affairs of South Asia, his knowledge is not sufficient, although he's got good advisors on this, people who are knowledgeable. And think tanks in the United States are extremely knowledgeable, very analytical. But at the end of the day, it's the leader who has to take the decisions. I don't think President Trump is in that position to take those decisions.
The Pakistani army has prided itself on the asymmetric war it has continued with India for such a long time. Now, this time around with this conflict, they might have realized that symmetry-wise India is getting even better, because our weapons were not only crossing the international borders, they were very precise, sir. They were targeting the things they wanted to, the messaging was there, everything was as close as to perfect, I would say. There is no perfection as such, but as close as to perfect. Sir, so the Indian challenge to the Pakistani air defense system, the whole system, sir. Now, the Pakistani army must also be thinking, because whatever they claim, this has not been a good war or conflict for them. So how do you expect the Pakistani army to react to this symmetric, I would say, the gulf which is increasing between the Indian and Pakistani army? How do you see that happening?
First of all, I think the Pakistan army would have read this entire campaign very, very seriously. And this is only the beginning. We are just about discussing at very early stage. Normally, campaigns are discussed over years. ये इसको बहुत डिटेल में पढ़ा जाएगा. The standout lesson for them is the fact that the Indian army achieved its short-term aims. The nation achieved its short-term aims without crossing the international border. Now, at this point, let me just divert a little bit to say, बहुत लोग ये समझ रहे हैं कि this is the end of land warfare. Please, ये ना समझी मत करिए. This is nowhere near the end of land warfare. Everyone is saying कि tank की death हो गई है, बस अब तो सिर्फ UAVs होंगे, armed UAVs होंगे, kamikaze drones होंगे, and things like that. No, don't go by that. War is not unidimensional. Every time you come out with lessons, the other world will surprise you in some way or the other. Particularly for asymmetric initiatives from the other side, the answers are very few. हमारे पास जवाब बहुत कम है. जवाब हमारे पास, हमने कश्मीर में अच्छे जवाब दिए हैं इनको. नेटवर्क्स को तबाह किया है, कंप्लीटली न्यूट्रलाइज किया है, अपनी इंटेलिजेंस को बढ़ाया है. हालांकि कहीं ना कहीं तो इंटेलिजेंस चूकेगी, वो होता है कभी कभी. अब 99 केसेस में आप सक्सेसफुल होंगे, एक दफे फेल होंगे, राइट. मगर I would strongly suggest to people to read this book by General Nirmal Vij. It's called Alone in the Ring. अभी 15 तारीख को ये रिलीज हुई है. ठीक है, मैं उस पैनल पे था with General Vij, right? And it will explain to you 2001-2002 में जब वो चीफ थे, जब डीजीएमओ वाइस चीफ, उसके बाद जब चीफ बने, तो क्या क्या एक्शंस उस वक्त लिए थे और कैसे वो आज फायदे में आ रहे हैं हमारे.
Okay.
There's a whole thing from linking from that time, not exactly linking it to this conflict because the book was already published by that time, but in our discussions we clearly established it, right? So it's an important aspect to remember that land warfare will still very much be there. Or Pakistan must be looking at our so-called cold start doctrine, our proactive strategy. इन सबको वो बड़ी deeply पढ़ा है उन्होंने अपने cantonments और आगे बढ़ाए हैं. They've tried to beat us in time and space to make sure that the mobilization part they can be always the first of the their various bases. तो ये सब चीजें उन्होंने पढ़ी है very deeply, and at this time it may be very difficult for us to say कि आगे पाकिस्तान आर्मी क्या करेगी. But I have no doubt about it. We must continue to treat Pakistan Army as a professional army. कोई pushover नहीं है लोग वहां पर. हालांकि बहुत लोगों को यहाँ अच्छा नहीं लगता कहना ये, but there are professionals across the world. Similarly, your adversary is a professional. You must treat them like that. Only then will you understand what are their weaknesses. They are trying to establish your weaknesses, analyze your weaknesses all the time. उसके बारे में हमको जानकारी करनी है. And we have to strengthen our flanks, strengthen our bases to make sure that the next time we are even more successful than what we have been this time.
And we have to remain united, sir. The way we were.
That is very, very important. And I think we demonstrated it quite well this time, except for one-off issues here and there, which were unnecessary. And we need not be passionate about issues on which you are in disagreement with the government. This is something that I very strongly feel about. The government of the time is your government, and you are a democracy. It's your government. You have elected the government. The government trusts it. It will take certain decisions. You need to support those decisions. Unless those decisions are, they lead you up a garden path. In this case, kahan hua kuch? You were succeeding, you were technologically demonstrating your superiority, और end में आपकी moral ascendancy देखिए 3-4 दिन के अंदर अपने short term aims आपने achieve करके और चुप बैठ गए. उसके बाद दुनिया आपको वाह वाह कर रही है. So I think we need overall strategic maturity. That's the very, very important lesson which has come out from here.
Sir, one last thing. Running short of time now, sir. I was going to come to cold start, but you preempted my question, your answer. So, मेरा जो था आपने सर, उन्होंने cantonments, they moved forward their cantonments. Now the issue of strategic depth again comes into discussion. With the cantonments forward, they are more within our range, the range of our weapons. So will Pakistan again look for that strategic depth also? Are they looking for it? Because वहाँ Taliban से things are not very hunky-dory with Taliban also. So, morally and ideologically, I mean, sir, academically, where are they heading, sir? I mean, एक Pakistani general के दिमाग में strategically, sir, terrorism apart, sir, strategically defending their country, क्या चल रहा होगा?
देखिए, ये तो क्लियर है कि आजकल के हथियारों के रेंजेस के साथ strategic weapons तो नहीं कहूंगा मैं, but most of these weapons which are being used, like missilery, etc., which is being used, all of them mostly have the capability to reach out deep into Pakistan. तो आप पीछे ले जाएं अपने कंट्रोलमेंट या आगे रखें कंट्रोलमेंट, it really matters. It's a question of decisions कि किसको आप टारगेट कर रहे हैं, किस चीज पर आप टारगेट कर रहे हैं. Are we willing to target a full combat command of the Pakistan Army, which is dispersed, of course, which is dispersed across our frontage? Are we going to do it in a systematic manner? Will that sort of cross the Rubicon for them, force them to undertake an offensive into our territory? These are various things which should be wargamed from time to time. But one thing is clear कि उनकी strategic depth जो है, जिस concept of strategic depth जो उन्होंने शुरुआत की थी अफगानिस्तान के साथ, वो at least temporarily, मैं नहीं कहता हूं कि ये permanent है, temporarily it is out of gear. और जो दो इन्होंने core, this most people don't understand this, एक क्वेटा की core है 12 कोर और एक 11 कोर है पिशावर में. ये दो कोर इनकी फोर्स मल्टीप्लिकेशन कोर्स हैं दोनों. अगर इनका अफगानिस्तान फ्रंट बिल्कुल क्वाइट है, or they have a very strong relationship with the Taliban, and the so-called strategic depth is intact, the concept is intact. Both these courses can be diverted towards India, right? इसमें दो divisions हैं, इसके अंदर all भी force multiplication elements हैं, and they can make a huge difference. मगर क्योंकि उस तरफ अभी situation ज़्यादा इतनी वो नहीं है, balanced नहीं है उनके लिए, इसलिए they cannot perhaps risk this. And this is something we must nurture our relationship with Afghanistan. बहुत जरूरी है ये. It's a smart act on our part when we sent our foreign secretary. I think it was in Qatar that we met the foreign minister of Afghanistan, and then we opened up. We haven't opened up our embassy, but we have opened up some kind of a mission there. हम उनको मदद करने में सबसे पहले होते हैं normally when it comes to food. When it comes to disaster management, जब भी अगर कभी earthquake, अगर मैं कहता हूँ कहीं पर भी कहीं कहाँ earthquake आया या कोई और चीज ऐसी आई, we'll be the first ones to move forward and support them there. And this should be, as a policy, must continue, because denying Pakistan its strategic depth should be an essential part of our overall doctrine.
Sir, I believe the External Affairs Minister has already thanked the Taliban for the support they showed during Operation Sindoor. Although it's very hard to, sir, basically have trust on what the media publishes right now. But
yeah,
this is what
I know. Even I am being accused because I got drawn into a discussion at the height of these operations where I saw a blurb while I was speaking on television that Karachi has been attacked, and I said, "Oh, very good."
I saw you at midnight, sir. I believe you're woken up for that conversation.
I was woken up for that program, and I looked at it and I said, I believed the thing which I saw on television, and I stated it. It's a very good thing.
You might not remember, sir, but I thought you questioned the maritime operation. You said that I was thinking that they would be extending into the maritime domain, but not so quickly.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I said.
Sir, I was
being accused of supporting
I was awake. I was watching.
Yes, you were watching this, and I said that I would expect that to expand the ambit of this entire operation. It was not important to start a ground offensive, but a maneuver in the maritime zone.
Yes, sir.
Standoff, safe, forcing the Pakistan Air Force to also look this side, and having our air defense cover of the complete fleet. That would have put a tremendous amount of pressure.
But I saw this suspicion in your voice when they were burning the Karachi airport, sir. I saw this suspicion in your voice, sir. And thank you so much, sir. We are absolutely run out of time, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I hope our viewership enjoys this discussion that we have.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure they will. Thank you and Jai Hind, sir.
Yeah.